Hi everyone, welcome back to the Helen Olivia Virtual Workshops. My name is Lindsay and I am going to be leading you in our floral workshop class tonight. We are doing a really fun one for the month of October. We are making arrangements in pumpkins. Lucky for you, they are pre-carved by our awesome team here, and we have pre-foamed them for you. So you don't have to worry about doing all that yourself. They did a great job with that. And the things you're gonna need for class tonight are your bag of materials, which has your pumpkin in it, your recipe sheet, and your hyacinth stakes, which are these guys. And we're gonna be using these to secure the lid on our pumpkin. So everything that we're using in class tonight is super hardy because it is a foamed arrangement, which means it only has a limited water source. So we did pre-soak it, but what I want you to do first is run water right on top of your foam to make sure that you can see water up near the top. And you're gonna do that as time goes on with this arrangement. You can just run water on it, and that's how you add fresh water to foamed arrangements. Everything we're using is super hardy because this is a limited water supply, unlike just water in a vase. So we don't have any hydrangea or anything that really drinks a lot of water. We've got things like mums and seeded eucalyptus and other things that should last. So let's go ahead and get started. So since all this dirty work is done, you just need to run it under the faucet and then we are good to go. The other thing you're gonna need to grab are your floral tools, and I've got a pair of clippers and a floral knife with me for this class. If you don't have either of these, a good sharp pair of kitchen scissors will do, or a small kitchen paring knife. Just don't use anything with a serrated edge because it can damage your stems. So something with a nice smooth edge, a small knife will do. Clippers are great too. You can use both or just one or the other. So when we are doing a floral pumpkin and we're designing in foam, you're gonna start kind of breaking the foam. You'll see as we start to add things in, that what you want to avoid doing is taking things out and continually putting them back in the foam because it will start to kind of crumble. So once you've stuck things in, you don't want to move them around very much. And when you do remove them, you want to give it a fresh cut before you put it back in the foam. That's super important. So why don't we go ahead and start greening our pumpkin up. And you can decide whether you want this to be a three-sided design if you're having it with its back to a wall or up against a wall or a mirror or something. Or if you want it as a centerpiece. So if you want it as a centerpiece, really focusing on spreading out everything out all around. And if you want it as a three-sided design, then you can kind of pick one side that's your least favorite and that can become your back at the end. So let's go ahead and green this up. So greening up today, we're using a couple different greeneries. We've got seeded eucalyptus, and seeded is great for foam because it goes in really easily. What we want to do is split these pieces up into smaller ones, and then we're gonna disperse these around. You're gonna hear me say this a lot, but we're gonna remove any of those leaves, especially with a foam arrangement. It's not gonna go in the foam. It's just gonna tear it up if you leave the leaves on. So let's just start greening around the base. So we're gonna create a nice drape of eucalyptus all the way around. And you'll start to get that shape that we're creating. And if you want to make it more wild and whimsical, you can really spray your greenery out a little more. And if you like it a little classic, a little more classic, a little tighter in style, then just keep everything tucked in. So if you've never designed in foam before, it does take a minute to get used to it. You want to get your stems into the foam as far as they possibly will go. With tiny, delicate stems, you probably want to use two hands to kind of thread it into the foam. That's what I would suggest. And guide it in there without breaking the delicate stems. So just continuing to place it around, and I'm designing a little lower than I normally would on this table, so I'm just gonna take a moment every once in a while to kind of get down more close to eye level and see how we're looking. So just keep pulling little pieces, and then I would suggest saving one piece to kind of spray out the top. So save a good looking piece, and this one's pretty sturdy, so I am going to stick that right in the center. So then you really start to create the shape. So, and removing all those leaves as you're going. Don't want any of these left on. And this is such a fun centerpiece for fall. People are gonna think you're so crafty. So if you're trying to recreate this and you don't have the materials from us, you literally just open the pumpkin, cut off the top, and then you scrape out all the guts. And then we have lined it with cellophane and then foamed it inside. You could, I'm sure, do with chicken wire in it if you wanted, but it would not last as long because of the actual pumpkin contents touching the water. Sorry, I'm grabbing that too soon. Next thing we're gonna grab is our lacutho, which is a really, really beautiful fall foliage. Has really interesting colors to it. Reds, greens, browns. So we are gonna disperse that around, and since we're designing in foam, our pieces don't have to be as long as the vase, so we can kind of get a little more bang for our buck with greenery. So with this lacutho, I'm just spreading it around. I just want variation of the seeded and the lacutho throughout. And the lacutho normally has kind of curved stems, so you gotta put it in the way that you want it to face. And so I'm taking off any of those leaves. This one I'm gonna put up top, it's a pretty piece. And then again, just dispersing around, making sure that the stems are really plunged into the foam as far as you can get them without damaging. If any piece looks shorter, then just strip off all those leaves and just use the tops of it. My last little piece of lacutho is gonna go right up front here, and that is all of our greenery for this arrangement. The next thing we're gonna grab for are our kale. We've got these really beautiful white kale. You have a couple ways you can use them. You can use them just as is. I personally don't love to reflex my kale, but it's something that you can do. You basically just start opening the leaves until it has a little more of a shape. If it's slightly reflexed, then I'm okay with it, but I don't love to always do it. Sometimes it just ends up looking, it's just sometimes not the look that you're going for, but it is really beautiful. So you can go ahead and open that up a little bit or leave it as is. And then we're gonna place our 3 kale around. You want to cut your stems, like if this was a vase with water, I would leave it this long, but I'm actually gonna go a little shorter because I know the kale's not gonna go all the way to the bottom, but I'm going to try to get it as low in there as possible. And really what we're gonna do with these kale is kind of nestle them in as if they are our mini green hydrangea that we typically would use. So we are gonna tuck them kind of close to the top of the vase or your pumpkin in this case. And then we're going to do that on all 3 sides. And actually, I'm not gonna do that in the back because I'm gonna make mine kind of 3-sided so it's easier for you all to see. So you've dispersed 3 kale. One is sticking up a little more than the others. The back is kind of gonna be my back because I'm gonna put it against a wall, or actually I'm gonna put it on our front desk here. So once we've gotten our kale placed, we are going to put in our roses. So the roses we have tonight are our free spirit roses, and we also have hard rock roses. I think that's all we've got. Hard rock is this, free spirit is this, which open up really, really beautifully with a really pretty kind of curly center. So we are going to clean all of our roses at once, and then we'll place them around the base. So by cleaning your roses, you remove any of the low-lying leaves, be careful of any thorns, and then you pull off any guard petals. With free spirits, I think the guard petals on them are beautiful. So unless you see a lot of damage, then I would just leave it on because they have that pretty pink tone. And if you pull off too many of the guard petals, you end up with just the tangerine color. If you don't like the pink, then pull off more of the guard petals. So we're gonna do that with all of our roses, remove those leaves, take off any damaged guard petals. And it does not hurt the integrity of the rose at all when you pull those off. It will actually just let it kind of open up more beautifully and not be constricted by those outer damaged petals. So same goes for every single rose we've got in our buckets. Free spirits do tend to have thorns. So if you're removing a thorn, there's a couple ways you can go about this. You can either use your surface and take your knife and just cut, shave them straight off like that. You can do the same thing while holding it. I would just always do it away from you. And you can also just pop them off with your thumb if there's only a couple. So that's the few ways to take off thorns. Be careful handling these if you don't have gloves on, like me. But you can just shave those thorns right off, take any guard petals, and on to the next. Now that we've got this rockin' and rollin', we are going to place these in trios or groups of 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, you can count. We've got 9 roses, so that's typical for our medium-sized arrangements that we do here, and then we get all the pretty fill on top. So once we're all cleaned, we can start placing. 7, 8, oh, we actually might have more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, we've got 10 roses. Okay. And you might have 10 or 9 in your bucket. So just continue cleaning, popping off those guard petals. As you go, you get quicker and you get more used to what you need to take off or leave on. So we are done now cleaning our roses. So let's go ahead and start placing them. So with an arrangement, move that out of the frame. With an arrangement of this size, we want the footprint of the flowers to be wider than the pumpkin. So we don't want everything to be tucked really low. You want it to have like a pretty blown out size. So let's go ahead and put our roses in groupings. So we're gonna do 2 free spirits and a hard rock, 2 free spirits and a hard rock, 2 free spirits and a hard rock. And then we've got 1 extra hard rock, so we'll just do 1 grouping of kind of 4. So let's go ahead and start placing. Cut your stems at a sharp angle. And since we do have a lot of materials that is just going in this small piece of foam, we want to blow everything out a little more than you might think because we've got to fit all those stems in there. So I'm gonna start right away and place a free spirit really low. And then I'm gonna go in with 1 a little high. So that's how it looks. And I've created a trio already visually for your eyes that includes the kale. So right away you have kind of a little trio, and then we're gonna pop in the hard rock for some contrast over there. Like so. Beautiful. So that's our first trio. Moving on to the next. Since we've got a hard rock right here, I am gonna do a free spirit here because I don't like all the same colors to always be right next to each other. Visually, it's not my favorite. And actually this flower is a little more blown out, so I'm going to use that for my next grouping. So sharp angled cuts, since we've got our first one here, I'm going to nestle this right next to this tail. And you want to put everything in at an angle and really make sure it goes into the foam. Be careful that you don't snap a stem. There's so much in here that if you lose a stem along the way, you are not going to have a problem filling it out. So don't worry if you break something as you go. That's just how flowers are. So there I'm nestling 2 at an angle, and then I've got my hard rock for my pretty contrast, and I'm gonna do that up high. So it's a trio, but it's not a literal triangle with them super smushed on each other. And also it's important to vary the lengths of your stems, so then there's a little visual depth in your arrangement. So I'm going to turn this around so I can actually see what I'm doing for a second. So nestle that in. And now we're going to place our third grouping in the back, or it's the back of mine, but this easily could be a 3-sided or a centerpiece arrangement. So again, keep those stems pretty long. They don't need to be as long as the vase, but you want to get them as far in as you can. And then I've got this kind of blown out, so really opened up, and I'm gonna use this in the back of my arrangement. But that's my third trio right there. And then I've got one more hard rock, and I've got a gap over here with no roses. So I'm gonna put that hard rock right under this kale, just to really even out the size. So see how the shape has really nice, low and rounded. It's perfect for the pumpkin shaped arrangement. So now that we've got those in, let's go ahead and place our mums. So we've got a couple mums. I need to look if we've just got mixed colors for you guys tonight. So we've got these really pretty chocolatey brown. We have these kind of blushy gold, which are really, really beautiful. And then we've got these deeper, like a terracotta red. Let's go ahead and place whatever our biggest ones are first. Mums are super hardy and long lasting. And these kind of mums are like the fancy mums, and I can't get enough of them. So we love using these here. I love the darkness of this brown. So I'm gonna place this right in this little hole here to add some contrast. And then since I placed that one dark one, I'm gonna place the other dark one, so I'm getting varied color around the vase. So I've got one here, and then I'm doing one on the opposite side, sticking it out a little farther. And you're gonna start fighting with stems in the foam, so just be patient. And if you feel a lot of resistance, just pull it out, fresh cut, and try somewhere else. So now I'm gonna place these dark reds, and I've got one there. And since I've got one more, let's see, where do I want this guy? Maybe here. Yeah, so I'm gonna go low over on this side. You can also group them together. I just want my colors really dispersed. It just looks very classic. And then I've got one of a lighter color, so I'm gonna put that one up top. How pretty. So it's already really coming together. The next thing I'm gonna do is pop in our pincushion protea. These are super fun, very tropical flower. They're super hardy and long lasting. That's why we're using it in foam today. So just give that a sharp cut, and you're going to try to get that stem in as low as you can. And I'm placing mine right there because I like the little texture. Whoops, I have to relocate it because I have a really curved stem. So you've got to kind of manipulate which way you want it to face. There we go. So now we've got that cool texture from the pincushion, and then we're gonna grab for our spray roses. So our spray roses we have are our Peach Follies. which are these beautiful, one of our favorites here. And then we also have the orange babes, which in my opinion are the best orange spray rose. So let's go ahead and put our babes in, the orange ones. And same thing goes for spray roses as regular roses. You have to do the same thing, clean the stems, remove all the leaves, and remove the damaged petals on every little flower. So it is a tedious job, but the more you practice, the faster you get. So just clean those stems, take off any of those leaves, and we're gonna get these ready to pop into the foam. Pull that off. If there's any time you have a little bud that's a little bit shorter, for this, it's close enough to the height of the top two that I'm gonna leave it on. It doesn't bother me. If I put it in the foam and then it looks weird, I'm just gonna cut it off. But if you've got something that's a lot lower, you can pull that off or cut it off. The nice thing about the foam is that you can use shorter stems than you would in the water, but for something like this, it's too short for this size arrangement if I were to try to use that on its own. So since I've cleaned all my babes, I'm gonna get this one cleaned up. And again, be careful of thorns with whatever you're handling, and then popping any damaged petals off of these as well. Once that's good to go, pop off some thorns. Now we're gonna place these. So just like I've been doing for everything else, I just really want to kind of disperse that color. And right away I see a spot that could use some bright orange. So I've placed one right there. This again is gonna kind of be the back of mine. And I'm choosing a back because when we're putting the lid on, the lid can kind of sit towards the back, or if you want it as a centerpiece on the center of your table, you're gonna end up putting your lid right on top. So now that we've got one babe spray rose placed, let's place the other two. I have a spot on this side that's got kind of a gap. So I'm gonna fill that with the babe there. And then I think I want one. I want one up front somewhere. Maybe next to this kale. So let's nestle this in, make sure your stems are going in the foam, and then now it is in. Then I'm gonna drop in my peach folly. And since this is a nice like lighter contrast, I wanna be able to see it. So maybe over here with these guys. Pretty. So tuck that, make sure everything's in the foam and you're not just running it into the cellophane. Then now that we've gotten those in, this becomes a little tricky. So ranunculus are super flexible stems. This one is super blown open, so it looks big, but if you have them in your bucket, this is one that's really closed. This has opened up really beautifully. So grab for your ranunculus. They are very difficult to put in foam sometimes. So this one has an extremely sturdy stem. This one, not as much. So just be cautious when you're putting it in foam because it's not gonna go as deep into the foam as another stem in here would. It's gonna just have to kind of stick in the surface of the foam. This one is super hardy stem, so it probably won't have any issue. But these orange ranuncs are beautiful. So basically, you're not gonna fight it. You're not gonna force it in if it doesn't wanna go in. You're just gonna place it in until the stem has just gone under the surface of the foam. So I've got one there. I'm gonna place one over here with this girly folly. And again, use two hands to really thread it into the foam. It's just easier when you have a more delicate stem, you want to really guide it so you're not shoving it with one hand and then it's bending and breaking with the other. So I'm gonna put one back here and just guide it in with that other hand. And then, now that we have all of that good stuff in. The last things we're gonna put in are our thistle and our scabiosa pods. So let's go with the thistle first. This is just a fun blue contrast. Let's see. This one I'm gonna cut up. This one I'm not going to because these aren't quite long enough to use alone. So this, I'm gonna remove any of those leaves, and then I'm gonna cut this into 3 pieces. So fresh cuts on all of them, and these are long enough that you'll be able to stick them into the foam. This one, on the other hand, if I were to cut this off, it's a little too short. So I'm actually gonna cut this middle guy off, and then I'll have a piece of 2 connected. So let's go ahead and place our contrasting blue thistle. I'm gonna pop 1 piece right there. I'll place 1 on the opposite side. Make sure you're really getting that in the foam. And I'm gonna do 2 little guys nestled next to each other. And then 1 kind of towards me. Like that. So I've got thistle, thistle, and thistle. Let me get a better look at this from a lower angle. And when you're using when you're making a centerpiece and you're designing in foam, you want to make sure that when you get down at eye level where people would be sitting, you can't see any gaps underneath. So that's why I'm trying to get low every once in a while and figure if I've left or filled enough of the space, but it looks good to me. The last thing we're gonna add in are our scabiosa pods, and then we're gonna put our tops on our pumpkins. So with scabiosa pods, I like them because they're kind of whimsical and a cool fall texture. So I'm gonna leave them a little bit longer, and I want them to float out above the arrangement. So we are just gonna disperse these guys as we want. So I've got 1 there, 1 there. Let's go 1 low over here. I just think they're so fun and cute, and I like them more when they're able to be seen. And if you're feeling that resistance, just take it out and give it a fresh cut and try again elsewhere. The last one is our last floral element. So there's our fun little pods. Beautiful, loving how this turned out. So now what we're gonna do is secure our lid. So you've got your lid, and you're going to now decide where you want it. If you have done a design where it's really well rounded, which I'm sure you all did, then you can put it directly on the top. If you're going to put it on the top and you feel like you're just smashing something right there, like I have this mum right here, you can move that mum. So take the mum, cut it fresh, and then move it over here. I like to put mine a little off kilter. So I'll show you from what I'm deciding is my front. I'm also gonna stick 1 thistle right there. This is where my lid is gonna live. So it's gonna be a little bit tilted backwards, like a little beret. So we are gonna use our hyacinth stakes to secure this. So what we like to do is take your stake, stick it up the pumpkin until you're almost to the top. So you want it to be really in there securely, and you're gonna do 3 of them right close together. So this is gonna create a really strong base for your lid or your pumpkin's little hat. So then once you've done that, we don't need them to be this tall because they don't need to go all the way down into the foam. They just need to go in long enough to stabilize it. So once you've gotten them cut, which actually I'm gonna cut them a little bit more, then you're going to stick that lid into your foam. Like that. And that is it. That is your final product. You can press it down so nothing is press it down so the hyacinth stakes are not showing. Oh, it looks so cute. And then if you need to adjust anything because you feel like something's, you know, being hidden by the lid, definitely move things around if you feel the need. But that is the finished pumpkin arrangement. These are just the cutest. I cannot get enough of these for fall. I hope you love it too. Oh, I've actually got one little piece of seeded eucalyptus that I can pop in. Like I said in the very beginning of this workshop, just make sure that you're adding fresh water, especially because it's in foam. Foam can only hold so much water. So be sure to be topping it off with water every day, and you should be able to enjoy it for a few days. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this class. It's been a privilege to instruct you today, and we hope to see you next time for one of our virtual workshops. And happy fall.